My thumb's in the corner. There goes the thumb. Here comes you.
Good morning. If we have to.
Hello. Look, I'm all in like tones of black and such. White. Yeah. Anyway, I feel like a bandito. Good morning and welcome to the Sun Dragon Sideshow.
The Dear Becky and Lizzy edition.
I'm Rebecca, aka Becky, for today only. Let me take this off so I'm a little less bandito-ish. I'm the owner of Sun Dragon Art and Fiber in really rainy and poopy downtown Brevard, North Carolina.
I'm Liz, or Lizzy, for today.
Just for today.
Yes. I'm the minion there.
Yeah. If you come in and start calling us Becky and Lizzy, we might look at you funny because we'll forget that we do this.
Yeah.
And this is more just for the cutesy stuff. I'm trying to cover the neck of this with my lovely new cowl. My ashes and soot. So much fun. I used to be Becky. Up until college, I was Becky. And then I wasn't. Then it was more professional. I was Bex in college, and then by the time I graduated, Rebecca was going to be much more professional. And I was going to be a professional. And now I run a yarn shop.
Lizzy.
Were you ever Lizzy?
Yeah. And
with a Y.
With a Y. And then Liz, and now I just write it out L''Z because, you know, why add more?
Well, when I was Bex, it was just BEX.
Yeah.
It was not BE like CKS or anything. It was BEX. Bexter, if you wanted to get fancy. So, okay. Yeah, it's crappy outside, but not as crappy as we thought it would be today.
No.
We were like ready for tornadoes and hunkering in basement. And
I was like, I've got to get to work before 9 because the thunderstorms are supposed to start at 9. Bad. So if I can get into work, I don't have to worry about driving through hailstorms or, you know, trees blowing over or all the crazy. And
yeah, and we were worried about all of that. Although I will say we heard weird noises last night. But it was raining, but it wasn't windy, and we were hearing either what were car doors or tree branches falling or something. And I'm like, but it's not windy. And we thought that we might have an animal messing with the garbage that was on the porch, bagged up, but on the porch. The rain just got louder. If you guys can hear it, then it's bad. I don't think it's loud enough for you guys to hear it though. But
I think the wind's supposed to pick up, or at least early this morning they said the wind's supposed to pick up because today is supposed to be like 66. Tomorrow's supposed to be like 50 with a low in the 30s.
Is that why you're in short sleeves?
Yeah, it's warm out. So the sun's after the rain goes away, the sun's supposed to be out.
This is my comfort zone right now, even if it gets warmer. So no, to go back to last night. So we heard this thumping and we kind of peeked outside and we didn't see anything. I was worried there was a bear on the porch. That's actually Brian was worried there was a bear on the porch, and the banging was actually the bear coming in through the screen door or something. We didn't see anything. So, okay, whatever. That was just weird. There were several pots overturned in the morning when we went outside.
It's a very good probability it was a bear or a raccoon.
I'm glad we didn't go further outside to investigate. Yeah. But luckily it did not make it on the porch, because what would have been the worst is if our porch door doesn't always latch very securely. So if it had come on the porch and then couldn't get out of the porch, that would have been bad. Because the way the door, you know,
you would have
I think the door comes out. So if he had gotten in, he hopefully would have been able to get out. But yeah, that would have been a hot mess. So we might have had some visitors last night.
I saw a video yesterday.
Yeah.
It was like only in Russia, and it's these great big piles of snow that have been plowed, and a guy's walking down the street and you see a bear jump over one of the piles of snow and chase the guy that way, and then a few seconds later you see the guy running back this way and the bear is still chasing him. It's like only in Russia.
Yeah. We have bears
here, but
we have bears here, but I don't know if they actively chase.
No.
Most of them get scared off by loud noises. So, but that was intriguing. I mean, I was worried about waking up in the middle of the night with lightning and thunder because I was seeing tornadoes happening in Tennessee and stuff. And we think most of it broke up in the mountains before it fully hit us. Thankfully. Because I was also thinking on the, like, what usually happens with all the hillsides and the mud and we have trees down for random, even when it's not bad, everything seems fine. So
Our mud has dehydrated for a good few days, so
well, 2 days ago, trying to come in,
Yeah.
and that was the last really rainy day. We thought it was going to rain all week. 2 days ago, I had to find an alternate way to work because there was some kind of spin out, super crazy crash right by the new Dollar General on the way into town. It's completely blocked off the road. I forgot to tell you on the way in yesterday. One of the cars, and I hope everybody's safe. I don't mean to make light of this if there were serious injuries, but one of the cars had ended up crashed into the sign that's by the street.
Oh.
And the sign's still there, but the whole base of it is like this. It's like, it's not as happy as it used to be. So the sign did not come away unscathed. Like, I remember stories my uncle would tell me about finding car accidents in the mountains of New Hampshire where there was evidence there was a moose involved. But the moose wasn't there, so he may have departed somewhat unscathed. This sign didn't. Yeah,
Moose are bad. Like, you hit a deer, you might be able to, life goes on. Deer's not gonna
you bounce off the moose.
Yeah, the moose is. Mythbusters did an analog of a moose.
Rabbit hole. Yes.
Yeah. Like, it's 4 spindly little, not even 2x4s for the legs,
but
the rest of it is tires.
Oh,
like,
man.
Actual car tires for the body. Like, that's how moose. You can just imagine.
I still remember from a vacation, probably at least 5 years ago, trying to back paddle away from what we thought was a bunch of sticks at the edge of a lake out in Colorado. It turned out to be a moose's antler rack. We were like, ah. So, yeah. But awesome creatures at the same time. So I wanted to do a little follow up on last week's Dear Becky and Lizzy. And I brought in some books from home. We were talking about reference books, and I was not ready to talk about them, like to show them off. The one book I cannot find is the book I learned to knit from, which is on the Knitting Guild of America's list of resource books if you're going to go for the masters in knitting. It's the Big Book of Knitting. I want to say when I put it in the subscript last week, description, whatever. It's by Katharina Bass or something like that. Great book. Thinner than some of the ones I'm going to show you in terms of a nice general reference book. When I bought it, I believe it was new because it was probably published around 2000, and now that feels old, but so the other books I was going to show off, first of all, to kind of go a little backwards here. My Cables Untangled book. This had a dust jacket with another lovely picture. This is what is under the dust jacket. And I think when I looked it up on Amazon, they may have a new dust jacket for it, which wouldn't match anyway. But Cables Untangled, this is the hardcover. I believe there's a soft cover version now. Exploration of Cable Knitting. It is by Melissa Leapman, so it is the same one. And one of my go-to, like in the back here, they have all these panels of different cables. Probably can't see the detail from where you are, but buy the book. They have panels, they have all over cabling.
So you could plan something.
You can map something out. Yeah, like shout out to Carol. I think she's past the design phase on her cable sweater, but she was designing it herself with all these different ideas. It also has some really great, it's got pictures, it's got a glossary of symbols if people choose to use the more standard symbols for cables. As I'm flipping through this, I have made this hat so many times. It is wonderful in that it looks like a braid. It is a wonderful, wonderful pattern. I don't think you can get the pattern by itself on Ravelry. It's in the book, but it's really great. There are a bunch of fun projects in here, but again, Cables Untangled, if you're trying to tackle cables on your own. I have some lovely videos, but if you're not a video person, I think this is a great book. So, then to get to the more general, we showed off the Capsace books last week. The one that I forgot to mention last week that I put in the description because I came across it doing Amazon searches, that you have to write reports and things. Again, this is the biggest one. It's awesome though. It's called the superscript is the comprehensive and timeless guide. But the main title is The Principles of Knitting, Methods and Techniques of Hand Knitting by June Hemmons Hyatt. Hiatt. Beautiful cover, easily recognizable when you search it on Amazon. I still have some of my bookmarks from when I scratched the surface. I never sent it in, but I scratched the surface of level 1 of the masters in knitting. And if anyone says, well, you should continue, you should finish it, I don't have time. I would love to. I don't have time. There are 3 levels. It's awesome. My friend Bonnie, who was the me of the last shop I worked at, and I was the Liz, she got through all 3 levels. It was fantastic. And she has total knitting street cred. This has a lot of, like, I just opened randomly. This is pattern design section of it. This is not a picture heavy book. This is more of an informational heavy, but there was a little picture in the schematic in the little end of there. I'm intrigued by, so I just flipped again, and we have double fabrics like jacquard knitting or double knitting. This looks like it is decorative color techniques. We have increase and decrease stitch patterns there's black and white photos in here. But again, this is a reference book. This is seriously like, okay, one of my little bookmarks is in Brioche, yarn over slip Brioche, and Tunisian knitting. I didn't know there was Tunisian knitting. I knew there was Tunisian crochet. So fun.
For our crocheters, there is a master's in crochet.
Not as intense.
It's like
it's one level.
One level.
I mean, it might still be intense, but it's only one level. All right, I'm trying to do this without. I'm not used to dealing with books anymore, so I'm trying not to break my pages.
I am not getting either, because you have to learn to write patterns, and my brain can't match.
Which is, I mean, the plus side of that is in learning to write patterns and writing your own patterns. And this one's another alternative brioche method. So I must have been researching this when I was starting to do brioche over at the other shop. I was looking at anything I could to help me understand brioche. Don't really need the reference book anymore, but it's always good. Like, I had to write, I squirreled. Hang on a second. If you want to know what I was going to say about Liz's thing. I use this. I had to write a blocking report. So there's a history of blocking. There's stuff in this book and a couple of the others I'm going to show you. It's fantastic. Anything you might need. If you like small prints and black and white photos and everything, this is going to cover like everything. What I was going to say about the masters in both knitting and crochet is their hope, both the Crochet Guild and the Knitting Guild of America, their hope is to try to systematize writing of patterns so that it's more uniform. When you pick up a pattern, you'll see if more people are using their standards, you will know what you're looking at, and you won't have to decipher something different or 6 different ways of trying to write out the same thing. So
I've found crochet is a little bit more standardized in the charts, not necessarily the written pattern, whereas but you can pick up anybody's pattern, and their idea of definition sometimes is different than somebody else's. So it really would help if
if more people use the same lingo.
The same lingo. But
okay, so this is another one. There is a quick reference guide, but this is not the quick reference guide, but this is the Vogue. This is smaller than the big one, right? This is the Vogue Knitting Ultimate Knitting book by the editors of Vogue Knitting magazine. There's a quick reference guide, the Portable Knitting Compendium, but this is not that, but it's still much smaller than that one. It's another one on the list for the masters. History of knitting. There's a rundown of little categories here. History of knitting, knitting supplies, yarns and tools, basic techniques, understanding knitting instructions, correcting errors, circular and double pointed knitting, color knitting, blocking, assembling, and finishing, care for knitwear, stitch dictionary, designing embellishments, modular knitting patterns. Ooh, that could be fun. And designer knitting patterns. So there are some patterns in here. Sometimes the Vogue knitting patterns are funky, but all of that stuff, again, I think I used some of this for my blocking report that I wrote that I never sent in. If you want a thinner guide than the big, huge one,
a condensed.
Yes. This has color photos for some of their Stitch dictionary in there, and designing and stuff. So this one, if you want one that more has the glossy photos and all of those cute things, there's also drawn things in here. They have my lovely Susan Bates knit check that we sell here for measuring gauge, all that good stuff. Oh, let me see. This is upside down, I know, but we have some drawn pictures over there that are shaded in color. So that's your thing. This might be the book for you. And then this is another book that I forgot that I even got for the Knitting Masters. Reader's Digest. Reader's Digest Knitter's Handbook is considered by the Knitting Guild of America to be fairly comprehensive. This one is not the hardcover. Some of these might have a soft cover version, but this one I got the soft cover. It was $20 when I got it. I didn't look at when these were published. I might go back and skim at those, but we should move on to our other questions too. This one has some two-tone. It's got the blue. It's black and white, but it's got some tones of blue in there to make it fun and interesting for the drawings that are in here. But it has, this is the cast on section. So all the basics, right? Casting on and off, knit and purl, increase, decreases, special throws, raised patterns, which is their category for cables. Look at this retro pictures in here, right? Classy guy with his hair combed back. It's always interesting to see what they pick for photos in here. Color knitting, beads and things, selvages, picking up. So a lot of construction type of stuff. Every once in a while, there's some color photos in this one for classic, Again, this screams 80s to me for some reason. She's got
fall leaves falling all over her coat,
which is cool, but it's gonna be a lot of work. So
yeah.
Stitching and understanding. Let's see when this was published. So Reader's Digest, I don't know how much is really being done recently, but the first publication of this was 1986.
Yep, that makes sense.
The most recent, let's see, we got 93, but then University of Southampton picked up the publication. The latest time it was, oh, wait, reprints. Let me keep going. First published in Great Britain as the Hand Knitter's Handbook. Reprinted, the last reprint of this was 2010. So, older book, but in by some measures. Although we were just talking with a knitter yesterday about how 20 years ago feels like the 80s, maybe the late 80s, but the 80s. And it's not. It's the early 2000s now. That's scary.
But it's still March.
Yeah, time has no meaning. So we don't even need to talk about that. The Vogue Knitting, let's see. This one, copyright 2002. So by Soho Publishing Company, who does all the Vogue stuff. I still work with them today. So this one's approaching 20 years old, the Vogue Knitting book. There might be reprints with updates, but, publications. There are some new publications happening, but there's a lot of reprints and just updates of some classics at this point. The first version of this giant Principles of Knitting was 1988. The reprint that I have was 2012. So when I got this book, when I was doing the Masters of Knitting, this was probably a fairly new reissue, because I want to say it was sometime between 2012 and 2015 when I attempted this, and it didn't fully happen. So Cables Untangled, when you look it up on Amazon, you may find a different looking book, because I think this one's getting old. The Big Book of Knitting, again, was at least 20 years old. I'm trying to find a publication date in this, and if they're not sticking together, there's no back page to the title page, which throws all of my stuff I learned about library and elementary school out the window. Resources and acknowledgments, it might be at the back. Yeah, as my book falls apart. Acknowledgments will also have publication 2006. So a little more recent than some of my other books, but still 15 years. So, okay. All right, that's my big stack of knitting stuff. I'm gonna put the pretty big one on top. What do we have for today? Go buy a fun book. We don't have any of these books, by the way, here for purchase in the shop.
So, and we don't have ways of getting.
No, the Soho Publishing maybe, but the other ones we don't really have a way of easily gaining access to them. So I would get them through Amazon or find your own bookseller, like Highland Books here in town. Maybe could order some of these for you because they have access to a lot of publishing companies. If you're not an Amazon fan, no problem. Go to your local bookseller and ask them about these books. Support local. That's fantastic. But we unfortunately cannot supply you with these.
Go scour a lot of used bookstores because they may or may not. They may have somebody's very loved or
and marked
slightly
up
loved.
Yeah. And that way you can support local or some other business in the book buying, and then you can support us in getting yarn to use with the books. So
we have one question.
Okay.
Dear Becky and Lizzy, would you please share how you keep track of your place in a pattern pattern while knitting or crocheting? Have you ever tried knitting and crocheting apps? Sincerely, Fluffy Fiber Friend.
Hi, Fluffy Fiber Friend. See, Liz tells me about these when they come in, and then I forget, and I go, "Oh, that's right. Okay." I might run and get my my trapper keeper, if I can find one of my trapper keepers. What we affectionately call a trapper keeper. So, keeping track of where you are in a pattern is definitely a challenge, right? And now we've got versions. You can have online versions of your patterns. You can have them like you have a lot of stuff on your iPad, or the printed version. Some people just love the printed version, and some people say, "I'm going to save the paper and I'm going to look at it on my phone." So what do? Right? I'll go look for stuff in a second, but let's start where we should probably end. Let's start with the digital stuff. So Ravelry makes it really easy to kind of organize things in your library in terms of keeping track of your purchases. But that doesn't necessarily help you keep track of once you're in there, how you keep track of where you are in your pattern. When I'm doing things electronically, I will download a copy onto my computer, or I will save it to the Books app on my phone, on my iPhone. There is a thing called Knit Companion. That is the knitting app I am the most familiar with, and I, in all honesty, haven't used it in years. I used it before I opened my own yarn shop, and it's updated since then. So I can't speak to all its awesome functions. I know, shout out to Amy. I know we have at least one or two knitters that know how to use it really well. When I used it, what was really cool about it is you could import the PDF of your pattern, and it would take any charts or even just the page you were on, and you could put a highlight bar that you could move. So you could highlight the row of the pattern that you're on or the row of the chart you're on, and you can move it, and it will stay there until you move it. So that's really cool. I have not investigated enough to figure out a way to do that on a non-knitting app. But Knit Companion was really cool when I used it. And I can't necessarily, it wasn't that it wasn't a good app that I stopped using it. It was time or energy or something. But I can't tell you all the tips and tricks about how to effortlessly use it now. It's available for Android and for iPhone or Apple products. I think they've streamlined it. There used to be a free version and a pay version. I would say just, if you have the money, it's like a $4 app or something. It's not a cheap app in terms of what apps usually cost. At least, again, I could be wrong now because I haven't looked in a while. I should do my research before the show, but we don't have show notes. So, I think the free version, I think the pay version might be worth it, to have bells and whistles, to have ads removed, and extra features that will help you like import and things like that. If we get an update from any of our knitters who use it, or if you use it and want to put comments below to share with others, please do so. I think that's awesome. I'm more fudge it and hope that it works when I'm doing things electronically. So I don't know if you do things electronically.
When
I'm gonna look, I'm listening.
When I download my pattern on my iPad, or pull it up on the download thing on through Ravelry. I tend to blow it up just a little bit and then move the lines up one by one as I'm going through the pattern. With the downside to that is when you stop in a complicated area, and I'm not sure if Knit Companion actually saves where your highlight bar is.
It should. Again, I haven't used it in a while, but yeah.
If I stop in the middle of, wherever the pattern is, I have to read my stitches and figure out where in the pattern I am. Or what I try and remember to do is take a screenshot of where I am in the pattern and mark it up and say, this is the date I stopped. This is the row I was on.
So you make notes.
I try and make notes on the picture. Then I've got to go find the picture and hope I remember, about when I
save it in your favorites, that kind of thing. Yeah, there's levels, right? And Knit Companion, I think that's one of the cool things about it. It will save where your highlight bar is. And in the books app on my phone, it will go back to the page it was on the last time I had it open, but that doesn't necessarily help me if there's a lot of lines on that page, like with the Papillon, right? So there may be other apps that are out there, but that is the one I know of the most. And that it's called Knit Companion, but it can work for knitters or crocheters. It's just a lot of the yarn world is a little more knit friendly, unfortunately. So they use that lingo, right? But
more often than not, I like paper patterns because I can move a Post-it note. I can check off rows.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Is I was gonna go down to the low tech end. This is sometimes
or highlighter tape.
Yeah, that's actually I didn't grab that while I was up.
Yeah, I put it in a plastic sleeve and moved my highlighter tape down the road.
Low tech hack is Post-it notes.
We had a customer
underneath or on top, depending on what.
We had a customer in yesterday who was asking for a row counter, and she asked me, she's like, which do you like best? And it's kind of the same with patterns, and which works best for you. And I work at a yarn shop. I own all the gadgets because they're there.
Yeah.
I don't use any of them because I forget to turn them or click them or whatever. I have to check it off with a pen and paper.
The thing with row counters and keeping track in your pattern, all of those, we have all the bells and whistles and all the crazy gadgets, and we would love to sell them to you. But there's also the low tech, doesn't cost anything other than going and buying Post-it notes. There's lots of low tech versions, and I will say that my thing about the row counters, and I'll say the same thing about keeping place in your pattern. We have row counters that are little turn guys that are like $1 or maybe under $3. Yeah. We have up to the clicky guys, and then the ring row counters, super fancy. They're $30. Expensive to cheap. A row counter is only as good as your ability to remember to use it. So I will sell you the fancy ring row counter. I used to wear rings on all my fingers. People who have joined us recently, I haven't worn my rings in a year.
She used to have 2 row counters. One
two
on each hand.
Almost every finger full. The pinkies are hard to find ones that find rings that will actually work and stay on and everything. But 2 of those were ring row counters, and I love them. But it's not like spending $30 is going to ensure that you know where you are in your pattern. Because if you forget to turn it, it's a fancy ring and that's it. So hatch marks on a piece of paper might be more effective. That could get off too. I've had knitters who that's all they do is make hatch marks on a piece of paper. But if you forget to write down a hatch mark, you're just as busted as if you forget to turn the ring. So
it's one of those that I own all the gadgets.
I'll sell you the fancy thing.
But for keeping track of where I am in a pattern, print it out and put Post-it notes on it. And easiest.
I'll sell you the fancy stuff, but I will not guarantee that it will help you keep track of where you are better, unless it's so pretty that you love turning it and you're going to turn it all the time.
I think some of it's you got to build that muscle memory habit,
and even then
somebody walks in and says the soup's over boiling and you forget to turn your ring order,
or the dog pulls your project across the
Yeah.
the floor and you forget where you were. And
Yeah.
so Post-it notes are fantastic. The way I usually use these, I will put these under the row I'm on if it's in writing. And sometimes on a chart, I'll actually put it over the row I'm on so I can see how my knitting is stacking. I can see the row underneath it to make sure it's lining up right. So I will use them in different directions. Highlighter tape, which we have some, I should go grab some in a second, is really, do we have some on the table? We're going to see. There's a mountain of yarn in front of us. So if we have some on the table, we may not be able to find it. But highlighter tape, it looks like a roll of Scotch tape.
Oh, I see it.
She sees it. Yes. It looks like a roll of Scotch tape, but it's a bright color. And the cool thing about highlighter tape is you can reuse it. Like you can reuse a Post-it note and you can reuse that. It's not like Scotch tape where you put it on once and you're done. And because Scotch tape is meant to adhere and keep things together, this is meant to mark where you are. What I will say about, and this is the next thing I want to show you guys, but I can give you a piece of, oh, look what I was working on the last time I used this.
The hack that I generally do is I turn a little bit of the tape to make a not sticky part. And
That's
then
pretty cool.
You stick.
Mm-hmm.
If you stick it on a printed page, it might grab some of the ink.
It might, or eventually it will start pulling the ink off the page. So, so while Liz is showing this off right now, and she can pull that off, it's reusable, so she can take it off and she can put it back on another spot. But it eventually, that already has a little bit of ink on it. So the hack for that, it doesn't mean, oh my gosh, I can't use it on a printed page. The hack for that is if you have sleeve protectors, I would put your pattern in the sleeve protector and put the tape on the outside of the sleeve protector. I
have a hat, my hat pattern for my little tiny hats.
Sleeve protector.
The sleeve protector's all beat up. The tape that I pull and run down is all beat up, and I use it until it's completely dead.
I doubt the camera can pick this up, but there is already black ink on this. But if it's in a sleeve protector,
do you want a new piece?
Nope. Because it won't transfer ink onto my paper because I'm putting it on the outside of this. You can move it around, and it might even stick a little better. Who knows? But that's great. The next step up from, so we have low end hack. We have Post-it notes. We have highlighter tape, which we do sell the highlight. We do not sell the Post-it notes. You got to get those at your office supply store or wherever. We do sell highlighter tape in a rainbow of colors. It's fun. We've got pink, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. Purple and pink will look very similar until you pull them off and start using them. Anyway, this is what we affectionately call the Trapper Keeper, because it reminds us, speaking of the 80s, of our childhoods when we had Trapper Keepers with Velcro and all fun things to keep all our school supplies in place. These are by Knitter's Pride. They are actually called chart keepers, and they're a little fancier and nicer. They've got fabric with prints on it. We have all different prints. I'm not showing them all. I'm not QVCing this, VSCing this so much today. They come in a size that is big enough for a full sheet of paper. Like if I open with snaps, I love it. If I open this up, there's a full sheet of paper, right? We also have a size that is a half. If you fold a piece of paper in half, it will fit very comfortably in there. It's got multiple snaps. See, there's 2 snaps here, but there's 1 snap on either side. The multiple snaps, I actually unsnap the wrong side, it does a really cool thing where if you unsnap it so you can open it up, you turn it around and snap it on the shorter one. Then it keeps it open and propped up. See, like that. It's almost too wide for the book I'm standing it on right now. But then the back side of this is a pocket. Under this flap, we've got a zipper. We have some black ones that have embellished like flowers and stuff on them, but very subtle. and those are Velcro on the side. The newer models have a zipper pouch in case you want to stick things in here. This side is magnetic. So,
And they come,
or it's metal so that the magnets can stick to it.
they come with 3 little magnet squares to like secure your page.
I have 2 left.
No, you have 3. There's one underneath. Keep going down.
Oh, there's my 3rd one. So
And then
they stick to everything. So they come off and stick to metal that you're wearing and other things. So you have to find them. I'm sorry. What were you gonna say?
then it comes with a thick magnet strip that you can move down your pattern as you go.
So let's say I was on this page. I would secure it in place. 1, 2, 3. And then the writing's going a different direction. So I might prop it up this way and stick this on and then slide it down as I go. Now, this won't work if I have to travel somewhere. So I might have to mark with a pen or something if the writing's going this way and I have to fold it up and go. If the chart was this direction, that works quite nicely. It may, again, it's not foolproof. If you decide to leave, if you decide to leave this year, close it up and go somewhere, when you open it up again, you may have to double check that hasn't wiggled a little bit when you're traveling. But it's still pretty cool. And I like gadgets, so I do love this. And I used to carry all my patterns around right inside here. I have so many projects going right now that I haven't used this in a little bit. That doesn't mean it's bad.
I'm not sure which pattern.
That goes with my petite Anchor summer shirt. Oh my gosh, that was a year ago.
I have like
this one,
a little one, and a couple
still
of big
haven't
ones.
finished this yet.
They're stuffed full of patterns that, projects on needles somewhere.
So again, like I have most of the current projects I'm working on. I'm trying the most organized I get is I put them in, if I print them out, I put them in sleeve protectors. So at least I am not combining pages. We did have a knitter several years ago who came in and said, this doesn't look right. And she had combined 2 patterns that we printed for her. So she had taken something written for worsted weight and was making it out of super bulky, but like she had different pages and she hadn't noticed they were different pages of different patterns. So some way to keep your pattern straight is a great idea. Can you check what she wrote to see if we've covered? I think we've covered most of what we can, but I want to see if there's some aspect of it we didn't quite encapsulate.
How you keep track of your place in a pattern while knitting or crocheting. Have you ever used the pattern apps?
I think we've covered a lot of that. I mean, there's obviously there's not the full discussion. There's more things we can talk about, I'm sure, and you can let us know in the comments.
Everybody,
we can.
Everybody has their favorite method.
Some people will write out on a separate piece of paper every single line of the pattern, even if it's just the number, and check it off as they go. You have to figure out what's going to work for your brain. Because some people will condense patterns in a way and say, we'll do this 16 times and just, you can do it. And that's why I have people who make columns or write it out,
16 things to cross off because I won't remember where I am in that. Do it 16 times.
And checking off rows as you go is awesome. Sometimes you have to figure out a different way to do that. Like the Papillon has these boxes that are different colors that are repeated many times throughout the pattern. So you can't check them off as you go or cross them off as you go, because then you need that many times. There won't be enough sides or, you might have to write out your own thing. And are you going for, you've written out your own thing, right?
I was looking for it. When I started doing the Papillon, I wrote each box, the red box, the orange box, blue box, green box. I wrote it on an index card. And then I did lines to where every time I did that box, I could check off every row until I started memorizing and getting comfortable with it. Yeah. And so I'd walk around with my pattern and this stack of index cards, and everybody's like, "What is that for?" And I'm like, "I don't know." but I've got to have a spot
'Cause
keeper.
the Papillon, those boxes have, it's like knit 8, knit 10, knit 8, knit 10, or knit 10, knit 8. There's things where it's repetitive enough, but until you're familiar with it, to keep track of how many times, like where you are in that column,
You can get lost
Mhm.
real fast.
So that's post-it notes,
Yeah.
right? But you have to remember to move it. There's
The joke I tell with the Papillon is everybody's like, well, how hard is it? It's not difficult. The Papillon is actually quite easy. The hardest part is keeping track of where you are in the pattern.
Mhm.
I tell people a lot. I think as knitters and crocheters, we've all gotten comfortable with skimming our pattern and not necessarily, like today, keeping track of where you are. A lot of us don't.
Mhm.
Like if it's complicated, we might write that section out and then skim the rest, But
Sometimes skimming and making assumptions leads to disaster.
yeah.
This
and with
one,
the Papillon, post-it notes, tape, something to keep track of where you are is super beneficial.
I showed you guys this yesterday. I've knit more on it. You may or may not be able to tell. But when I went home, I haven't touched this. I mean, I've touched it because I've tossed it out of the way as I'm looking for other things in the shop, in a mad frantic search. I hadn't worked on this in probably a year.
You working on that right before the lockdown.
Yeah.
We were sitting in the comfy chairs. It was a quiet day, probably a rainy day. It was this time last year. And I remember you sitting there working on it.
Because I was going to make myself a sweater.
Yeah.
I've made other sweaters since. But so I had this and this little open close, there's 2 stitch markers to mark the center part of this. And there was another stitch marker in the center part down here. And I was just like, okay, I'm at the place where I don't often mark the right side of my work, even though I should. So I'm like, it's probably not that. So why is that there? And through some detective work, I figured out I had stopped at the end of a repeat. And it was helping me mark where my first repeat of these 18 rows that involves some short rows. So you can't just count 18. Where that had stopped and I'd started my second one. And so it gave me enough information to figure out where I was, because I was working out of one of the books, but I had not marked where I was. And this is a year later. So yeah. But I figured it out and I've made more progress on it now, and yay. But if I had been thinking about it differently and more smartly, I might have put a sticky note where I was in the pattern, or made notes. Sticky notes are great because you can write on the sticky note, and then if things change because you're at a different part, you can write a new sticky note. So low tech is sometimes the way to go. And so we're not always going to try to upsell you on the fancy unless you want the fancy, and then we have it. But sometimes low tech means then you have some resources in your budget for something else lovely from the yarn shop. Anyway, bells and whistles and gadgets are fun too. So I think that covers it pretty fully.
Yeah.
And we have about 5 minutes till we should go open up the shop, and it is nasty out. So make an appointment if you want to come in today. Otherwise, stay home and stay dry and shop online. So
you can show up. We'll bring yarn outside for you, but if you don't have an appointment,
So I'm sorry. I wish we could, but the excuse of "but it's raining and wet and cold out here" is not going to get you into the shop. An appointment gets you into the shop, because we are still in the middle of a pandemic. So even if we think we're coming out of it, we gotta wait and see. Goals for the weekend. What goals do you have for this weekend? What do you think?
Well, I have 2 starts of Papillons on needles, because I started a Papillon on Tuesday night.
Because I started a Papillon.
No,
never mind.
I started a Papillon right after you did, and it's in the same place you are. Week. And then I started a new one.
That's right, you did. It's raining really hard outside. I'm getting distracted.
Tuesday night. It is black for the main color and just barely off black for the contrast color. So it's going to be like, it's going to look jet black. And only if there's light on it are you going to be able to tell that there's off black in there.
Or you get too close and then you'll get whacked with a papillon because oh no, you could probably get whacked with something else because we don't want to get
I
your
don't want
germs
to
on
get
the
your
papillon.
germs on my papillon. I at one point a couple weeks ago, I was like, I've done all the papillon stuff that, like there is nowhere else to go. I've done the negative and positive. I've done 30 different colors. I've done the 6 colors in a pop. I've done solid. I've done them all. So I'm done. And then I was like, ooh, jet black and off black.
Dark and broody.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. So you have things you can work on.
And then my square.
Yeah.
My half shell probably.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If my hand.
You can see some of what we're working on this weekend because tomorrow night there is sit and stitch. I'll do my goals in a second.
Okay.
Tomorrow night there is Zoom sit and stitch from 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And the code to join is 828-877-3550. It is our shop phone number. And then if nighttime is not your thing or the time difference is just way too crazy, we are having our monthly dual platform virtual sit and stitch afternoon on a Saturday. Is this Saturday? That's 2 days away. And that's from 1 to 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time again, East Coast time. You can, same thing, shop phone number to join on Zoom. That is 828-877-3550. If I said it too fast, it's probably in the description. Or just come on Facebook Live. Facebook Live, you get to see me. And you get to hear me. The quiet sister,
Quiet sister.
We're not actually sisters. That's just one of our fun phrases. So, yeah.
We're not actually quiet, but, we pretend.
It's all sarcasm. Everything. If you think we're serious, most often we're not, but you can always ask us if you're like, were you really serious about what you said about that? We'll tell you. Unless it's super personal, we'll tell you. So you get to see what we're working on. When I do that, I usually lay out you don't see them all because they're under the camera or behind the camera, but I lay out all my ongoing projects right now. And I pick 1 or 2 that are hopefully mindless to work on because trying to keep track of comments on Facebook Live and letting people into Zoom and et cetera, and knitting. It's a bit much. Notice I don't do that here.
Yeah. And if it's knitting and counting, and so generally they're.
And here's the thing about keeping track of where you are in your pattern. Speaking of that, some of the ones I'd like to work on this weekend, I haven't printed. So I would have to look at them on my computer, which is being occupied by Zoom. So it narrows what I can work on. But if I look around at things that I have going, oh, that's sad. There's a pull on this. I just noticed a pull on the shawl. This is what happens when you live in a house with a cat who won't let you trim his claws. Not take the claws out. I would not declaw my cat, but just trim them so they don't catch on everything. I think every single sweater I have probably has a pull or something right here because he demands I pick him up when I come home. And this is where he perches when I'm holding my 15-pound cat. And he loves being pet just for the first 5 minutes I come home. And he does the kneading on my shoulder, which means when I let him down, part of my sweater goes with him 9 times out of 10. But so this little pull here, which I will probably try to just yank to the inside, is probably from my cat. I shouldn't blame all of my snags on my cat, but they're mostly from him. So I have 2 shawls to block if I remember to take them home. So that is on my docket for this weekend. I have the Stay Out of the Forest shawl, and I have the papillon I just finished. There's more ends to weave in on that sucker before I block it. I don't have to, but I don't want my ends to get caught in the washing machine when I spin it out. What I have to figure out, there's so many things I can work on. I have 5 or 6 sweaters on needles. I have started another papillon that I've gotten this far into. I have so many things to work on. It's hard to pick 1 or 2, but I'm trying to have the goal of finishing a project every weekend. And I was thinking about this last night. I'm like, what am I close to finishing now? This was great because it was a cowl and it was short. The cowl I have on needles right now is pretty intricate color work, so that won't be, unless I only spend time on that, it will not be finished this weekend. If I focused on it like I did last weekend, I could finish my striped sweater because I only have the sleeves. And the last time I was down to just sleeves on a sweater, I managed to finish it in a weekend. But that might need some pretty dedicated knitting. That might end up being my mindless knitting for the Saturday sit and stitch.
And you do have to keep track of your decreases.
Yes, although the decreases on that are every so many inches instead of like rows. I have to keep track of my rows because I'm striping it just like the body. But that's a little easier to keep track. It's not like continual counting.
Yeah.
So that's a thought, is maybe my striped sweater is what I will finish this weekend. I have way too many things I'd like to be working on this weekend. I started a crocheted shawl that if I focused on it, I bet I could finish, but I haven't actually finished any crochet things I've started in quite some time. So maybe getting either the lace fan shawl, which I was just showing off the pattern for, which I just started, finishing that, or my behemoth of the Nessie shawl technically is closer to being done, but it's huge and dense crocheting. So we'll see. But I haven't shown that any love for quite some time. So it would be really nice to maybe finish that. So I think I should try to make a concerted effort to do a little more crocheting this weekend. And we'll see. You'll have to come watch on Tuesday or join us live over the weekend to see how that goes. But for full weekend progress, watch us next week. So we should open up the shop. We're getting closer and closer to 500. So we'll have YouTube watchers only sale. And the sale will probably not only be a day or two because some people are behind on watching, but
keep track
to 500.
Pay attention to the how many are subscribers, because the closer and closer we get to 500, you might want to go read the comments on some of the future videos, even if you're like, I'm not going to watch them until. If I put the code in the comments of a YouTube video, I might hide it a little. It might be down by the bottom links so that our true fans will be able to take advantage of it, not people who are skimming through and going, ooh, I just want the sale. Those of you who are part of our community, we want you to have a sale. So, or we might just say the link is in the video and you have to watch it. And you won't know when we're going to say it. So sneaky, so evil. Ooh, we wouldn't do that. Would we? Would we? So like yesterday, I think we're at 480. That's 20 people, folks. That's if you haven't subscribed, again, I feel like I'm on an NPR fundraiser. If you haven't subscribed, it's time. If you're comfortable with it. If not, tell your friends and neighbors and see if they subscribe, because we can get there. We can do it. We can do it. All right. Have a good weekend. If we don't see you or see your name or see something this weekend, on Friday night, Zoom, Saturday afternoon, Zoom and Facebook Live. Again, times and everything will be in the description. I say a lot of ums lately. It's one of those days. Mm-hmm. We hope to see you this weekend. If not, we will be spending some time with you next week. Have a good one. Stay safe out in all this crazy weather. Stay dry if you can. Do everything you can to stay safe on many fronts at this point. That's life right now. It's crazy. We love you all. Have a good weekend. Bye.